The lava rivers of Mustafar hissed like serpents drowning in their own venom. Ash choked the sky, blotting out stars that had no business watching what was about to unfold. Anakin Skywalker stood on a crumbling repulsor platform, his boots mere inches from a drop into liquid fire. Across from him, Obi-Wan Kenobi raised his lightsaber, not in threat, but in grief. "Anakin, please." Obi-Wan's voice cracked. "You don't have to do this." The dark side had sunk its claws so deep into him that his very pupils seemed to bleed amber light. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of every murdered Jedi, every slaughtered youngling, every choice that had led him to this scorched hellscape. "I don't have to do anything, Obi-Wan. That's the point. The Jedi spent years telling me what I had to do, what I couldn't have, who I should be." He ignited his lightsaber. The blue blade cast shadows across his face that made him look like a stranger. "I'm done being their weapon. Then what are you? Free." They moved. Obi-Wan's Soresu was a fortress, each parry economical, each step calculated to redirect Anakin's fury. But Anakin's Gemso was a battering ram. He struck with the weight of planets behind every blow, his rage channeling through the Force until the very platform beneath them groaned and buckled. Their blades met with a sound like thunder cracking bones. Once, twice, a dozen times in as many seconds. Obi-Wan gave ground, boots scraping toward the platform's edge as Anakin pressed forward with mechanical precision. The heat from the lava turned the air into a furnace. Sweat poured down Obi-Wan's face, but Anakin barely seemed to notice. The dark side was feeding him, sustaining him, making him into something more and less than human. "You were my brother, Anakin," Obi-Wan shouted over the roar of the rivers below. "I loved you. Then you were a fool." Anakin spun, his blade cutting a horizontal arc meant to bisect Obi-Wan at the waist. Obi-Wan dropped into a crouch, the plasma passing inches above his head, close enough to singe his hair. He rolled backward, giving himself space, but the platform was disintegrating. Chunks of durasteel plunged into the lava with wet, hissing screams. They leapt. Obi-Wan to a nearby outcropping of volcanic rock, Anakin landing with predatory grace on the slope leading toward the shoreline. The heat here was worse. The air itself seemed to burn. Obi-Wan's robes began to smolder. "It's over, Anakin." Obi-Wan climbed to higher ground, his boots finding purchase on black stone. "I have the high ground." In the original timeline, the one the Force had whispered to seers and prophets, this would be the moment. The leap, the overconfidence, the punishment for hubris delivered in a single devastating strike. But the Force showed Anakin something different. He closed his eyes, not to surrender, not to retreat. He listened. The dark side was screaming at him, feeding him visions of futures branching like lightning across a storm-dark sky. He saw Obi-Wan's defensive stance, saw the way his former master's weight shifted, preparing for the upward block, saw the blade's trajectory, the angle of deflection, the fatal opening. Anakin's eyes snapped open. He leaped, but not upward, sideways, spinning through the air with a grace that defied his mechanical arm, the Force propelling him in a corkscrew that carried him behind Obi-Wan's position. Obi-Wan's blade swung through empty space, the defensive strike meeting nothing but superheated wind. Anakin landed on the rock shelf, pivoted on his heel, and drove his lightsaber upward with both hands. The blade punched through Obi-Wan's spine and erupted from his chest in a spray of blue plasma and cauterized flesh. The smell was immediate. Burned robes, seared meat, the acrid stench of a body's systems shutting down all at once. Obi-Wan gasped. Not a scream, just air leaving lungs that would never draw breath again. "Anakin." Blood flecked his beard, crimson against gray. "You were my brother." Anakin withdrew the blade. Obi-Wan collapsed, his lightsaber clattering across stone before tumbling into the lava below. For a moment his eyes remained open, staring at the ash-choked sky as if searching for answers among the embers. Then they went dark. Anakin stood over the corpse, chest heaving, and felt nothing. The dark side had promised power. It had promised strength. It had promised that he could save everyone he loved. Instead, all he felt was the void where Obi-Wan's presence in the Force had once lived. A silence so profound it threatened to swallow him whole. Behind him, the scream of repulsor lifts announced a shuttle descending through the volcanic haze. Emperor Palpatine stepped onto Mustafar's scorched surface with the confidence of a man who had orchestrated the galaxy's downfall. His yellow eyes gleamed beneath his hood as he approached Anakin, expecting to find his apprentice broken, burned, clinging to life. Instead, Anakin stood whole and terrible, Obi-Wan's body at his feet. Palpatine's smile faltered. "Rise, Lord Vader." His voice carried that oily satisfaction, the tone of a master who had successfully bent his student to his will. "Your transformation is complete." "Vader?" Anakin turned. His eyes were still gold, but there was something else there now. Something Palpatine had seen in the mirror too many times to mistake. Ambition. "That name is a leash, Master." Anakin's voice was soft, deadly. "I am Anakin Skywalker, and I am done kneeling." Palpatine raised his hands, force lightning erupting from his fingertips in a torrent of blue-white agony. The bolt struck Anakin square in the chest, arcing across his mechanical arm, burrowing into flesh. Muscles seized, skin charred. The smell of burning filled the air. But Anakin didn't stop. He walked through the lightning like a man walking through rain, each step deliberate, his boots crunching on volcanic glass. His lightsaber stayed lit, the blue blade cutting through the electrical storm. Palpatine's eyes widened, not in fear, but in calculation. He poured more power into the attack, enough to reduce a rancor to ash. Anakin tanked it. 10 feet. 5. 3. Palpatine cut the lightning and tried to retreat, but Anakin surged forward with force-enhanced speed. He tackled the Emperor, both of them crashing through the entrance of the mining facility's control room. Durasteel buckled. Consoles shattered. They hit the floor in a tangle of robes and fury. "Everything I taught you," Palpatine wheezed, trying to summon another attack. Wasn't enough. Anakin's lightsaber came down. The blue blade punched through Palpatine's chest, the tip erupting from his back and scorching the floor beneath. The Emperor's mouth opened in a soundless gasp. His hands scrabbled at the blade, flesh sizzling. Anakin twisted. The Emperor of the Sith died on Mustafar's scorched floors, his plans for eternal dominion reduced to ashes and ambition. Anakin rose, standing over the corpse of his master. He held his lightsaber up to the volcanic light streaming through the shattered windows. The blue crystal inside pulsed, pure and clean, a relic of his Jedi past. He closed his eyes and reached into the Force. Not the dark side, not the light, but something rawer. He channeled his grief for Padmé, his rage at Palpatine's manipulations, his hatred for the weakness the Jedi had tried to force upon him. He poured it all into the crystal. The blue blade flickered, then bled crimson. The crystal cracked inside the hilt, fracturing along fault lines only the Force could see. And when Anakin opened his eyes, the new red glow reflected in his golden irises. "Perfect," he whispered. He walked to the communications array, stepping over Palpatine's cooling body. With a thought, he reached across the galaxy through the Force, touching every clone's mind simultaneously. The inhibitor chips were Palpatine's creation, but Anakin had studied their design. He knew their frequencies. He knew how to override them. "Order 66 is rescinded." His voice echoed in a million minds at once. "New directive. The Emperor is dead. I am your commander now. Secure all Jedi temples. Take no lives unless fired upon. Obey." Some Jedi survived. Most were captured. The order shattered, but not exterminated. Anakin allowed himself a grim smile. Then he felt it. A pull in the Force, distant but familiar. Padmé. The medical bay aboard the commandeered Star Destroyer Resolute was sterile and cold. Medical droids hovered over a single bed where Padmé lay unconscious, her abdomen swollen with the twins she carried. Anakin burst through the doors, still covered in ash and blood. "Padmé." A droid turned its photoreceptors toward him. "Emperor Skywalker, the patient is stable, but save her." It wasn't a request. He knelt beside the bed, taking her hand in his. It was so small, so fragile. The dark side had kept him strong, sustained him through impossible wounds, but it couldn't protect her. He tried to channel the Force into her body, to heal the damage, to reverse whatever was killing her. The midi-chlorians in her bloodstream rejected him. It was like trying to grasp smoke. The harder he pulled, the faster she slipped away. "No." His voice cracked. "No. You don't get to die. I won't let you." But the Force didn't care what he wanted. The droids worked through the night. Emergency cesarean section. 2 infants brought screaming into the world. Luke and Leia healthy and whole. The droids cleaned them, swaddled them, brought them to Anakin while they worked to save their mother. Padmé's eyes fluttered open just once. She saw the twins, saw Anakin's face, ash-streaked and devastated. "There is still good in you." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I see it. Promise me. Raise them in the light." Padmé, no. Her hand went limp in his. The monitors flatlined. Anakin screamed, and every window in the medical bay shattered. Glass rained down like frozen tears. The droid staggered back. The Force itself seemed to recoil from his anguish, a wave of dark-side energy that rippled across the ship and made even the hardened clone troopers flinch. When the scream finally ended, Anakin sat in silence, cradling his newborn children. "You will never be weak," he whispered to them, his voice hoarse. "You will never lose anyone. I swear it." He didn't see the shadow the vow cast, didn't see the gilded cage already forming in his mind. 1 week later, Emperor Anakin Skywalker stood on the balcony of the Imperial Palace on Coruscant. Luke and Leia slept in his arms, tiny and perfect and utterly dependent on him. Below, the city's endless lights sprawled to every horizon, a galaxy of fireflies trapped in duracrete and steel. He had murdered his master. He had killed his brother. He had lost his wife. But he held the galaxy in his fist. The dark side whispered promises of power, of control, of a future where nothing could ever hurt him again. Anakin no longer believed those promises, but he had nowhere else to turn. "Long live the Emperor," he murmured to the night. And the night, indifferent and eternal, did not answer. 15 years. 15 years of absolute rule had transformed Emperor Anakin Skywalker into something the galaxy had never seen before, neither Jedi nor Sith, but a force of nature unto himself. In the throne room of the Imperial Palace, he floated 3 feet above the obsidian floor, legs crossed in meditation, his body crackling with dark-side energy that made the air itself shimmer. His eyes were closed, but he could see everything. The holonet traffic across Corellia, the rebel cell planning an attack on Corellia, the Imperial governor on Ryloth accepting bribes, the smuggler on Nar Shaddaa carrying illegal spice. The galaxy could not hide from him. "Father." Anakin descended slowly, his boots touching down without a sound. His eyes opened, still that molten gold, but tempered now, controlled. He was 49 years old, but looked barely 35. His face unlined, his hair still dark. The force drain technique he'd mastered sustained him, siphoning life from captured Jedi relics and Sith artifacts stored in the palace vaults. Luke Skywalker stood in the doorway, 15 years old and already tall, his frame lean and hungry. He wore black training robes, and his blue eyes held the kind of certainty that only the young possessed. "The 7th Fleet reports complete pacification of the Tian cluster." Luke's voice was crisp, military. "Minimal casualties. The insurgents surrendered when they saw our forces. Good." Anakin studied his son. Luke had his mother's face, Padmé's delicate features sharpened by Anakin's intensity. "And your sister?" "Still in the laboratory. She said she was close to a breakthrough." Anakin nodded. He moved to the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, and stared out at Coruscant's sprawl. Somewhere in the lower levels, millions lived and died without ever knowing his name. Others whispered it like a curse. A few, the privileged, the powerful, spoke it with reverence. He didn't care which. Fear, respect, hatred. They were all tools. "Luke." He didn't turn. "What did you feel during the operation?" "Sir?" "When the insurgents surrendered, what did you feel?" Luke hesitated. "Satisfaction. We achieved the objective without unnecessary bloodshed. That's tactics. I asked what you felt." Another pause. When Luke spoke again, his voice was quieter. "Relief. That I didn't have to kill them." Anakin finally turned. His son stood rigid, waiting for judgment. Instead, Anakin placed a hand on Luke's shoulder. "Good. Never lose that. Power without conscience is just destruction." "I learned that too late." He squeezed once, then released. "Dismissed. Tell your sister I want to see her when she's finished." Luke bowed and left. Anakin watched him go, seeing Padmé in every step. "There is still good in you." Her last words, 15 years dead and still echoing. The stealth shuttle cut through Dagobah's fetid atmosphere like a blade through rotted flesh. Anakin piloted alone, his presence in the Force concealed beneath layers of deception that would have impressed even Palpatine. Yoda was here, the last Jedi Master. hidden in the swamp's dark side miasma for over a decade, but Anakin's visions had finally pierced the veil. The shuttle touched down on a rare patch of solid ground. Anakin stepped out into air thick enough to choke on, his boots sinking into moss that squelched wetly. The Force here was wrong, twisted, corrupted, a festering wound in reality itself. Perfect camouflage for a Jedi Master in hiding. He walked through the swamp, lightsaber unlit, following the pull in the Force. Roots tried to trip him. Serpents slithered past, eyeing him with hunger. He ignored them all. The dark side cave, the one where Luke would one day face himself, called to him. He entered. The darkness inside was absolute, smothering, alive. Visions assaulted him immediately. Padmé, her belly swollen with pregnancy, reaching for him with desperate hands. "Anakin, help me. I'm dying. You're killing me." He walked past her. Obi-Wan materialized next, whole and healthy, his face soft with forgiveness. "It's not too late, Anakin. Come back to the light. All is forgiven." Anakin didn't break stride. Then himself, a version wearing Jedi robes, eyes blue and clear, standing in the temple surrounded by younglings who laughed and played. Peace radiated from that other Anakin like heat from a sun. That one made him pause. The vision Anakin smiled. "This could have been you. This is what you destroyed. I know." Anakin's voice was steady, "And I would do it again." The illusions melted like wax in fire. The cave's darkness recoiled from his certainty, leaving him standing in a chamber lit only by bioluminescent fungi. At the far end, a small figure emerged from the shadows. Yoda. The Grand Master looked ancient, diminished, his green skin dull and his ears drooping. But when he ignited his lightsaber, a blade as green as the swamp itself, his eyes burned with the same fierce determination Anakin remembered from the council chambers. "Skywalker. Felt your coming, I did." Yoda's voice creaked like old wood. "Twisted by darkness you are, but too late to turn back. It is not." "I didn't come for redemption, Master." Anakin ignited his crimson blade. "I came to end the past." Yoda moved. For a creature over 800 years old, he was fast. Ataru, the acrobatic form, turned him into a spinning comet of green light. He flipped, twisted, bounced off walls, attacked from angles that should have been impossible. Anakin met him with Gemso's brutal efficiency. Where Yoda danced, Anakin crushed. His strikes were sledgehammers, each one powerful enough to crack durasteel. The cave shook with the impact of their blades meeting. Yoda landed on a root, flipped backward as Anakin's lightsaber carved through the space he'd occupied. The swamp outside seemed to respond. Roots burst through the cave wall, grasping at Anakin's legs. Water surged up from cracks in the floor, trying to pull him down. Anakin channeled the dark side and burned it all away. Fire erupted from his free hand, not normal flame but dark side energy that turned the water to steam and reduced the roots to ash. The cave filled with smoke. Through the haze, Yoda leaped again, but he was slowing. Age and exile had weakened him. His landing was a fraction of a second too slow. Anakin's hand shot out. The Force grabbed Yoda midair and slammed him into the ground. Stone cracked. The Grand Master gasped, green blood trickling from his mouth. Anakin stood over him, red blade humming. "Failed I have." Yoda's voice was barely a whisper. The chosen one, consumed by the very thing he was to destroy. "No." Anakin's blade descended. "I will bring balance. My way." The green light in Yoda's eyes went out. His presence in the Force, that vast, ancient, impossibly deep reservoir of wisdom, extinguished like a candle in a hurricane. Anakin stood alone in the cave, surrounded by ash and smoke and the corpse of the last Jedi Master. He should have felt triumph, victory, the completion of a goal 15 years in the making. Instead, he felt nothing, just the hollow certainty that there were no Jedi left to oppose him. He was alone. The training grounds of the Imperial Palace were a testament to efficiency over beauty. No decorative gardens, no fountains, just a wide durasteel arena with practice droids, weapon racks, and observation platforms. Luke and Leia stood across from each other, lightsabers ignited, his green, hers red. They were twins, but they couldn't have been more different. Luke was all grace and precision, his Makashi form turning the duel into a dance of elegant thrusts and economical parries. Leia fought with Juyo's savage aggression, her strikes wild and powerful, fueled by barely controlled rage. Their blades met in a shower of sparks. "You're predictable," Leia snarled, pressing forward. "You're sloppy," Luke riposted, his blade flicking toward her shoulder. She batted it aside with brute force, then spun, her blade cutting a horizontal arc. Luke dropped into a crouch, the plasma passing overhead. He swept her legs. She leaped. They separated, circling. "Enough." Anakin's voice cut through the arena like a blade. Both twins deactivated their sabers immediately and turned to face him. He stood on the observation platform above, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "You fight like rivals, not siblings. When I am gone, you will inherit this empire together. If you cannot coordinate against practice droids, how will you stand against true enemies?" Luke and Leia exchanged glances. Something passed between them, the wordless communication of twins who had shared a womb. "Yes, Father," they said in unison. Anakin descended via the platform's repulsor lift, landing between them. He studied them both, Luke with Padmé's compassion barely hidden beneath his warrior's discipline, Leia with Anakin's own intensity burning in every movement. "Luke, your Makashi is flawless, but it's a dueling form. What do you do against multiple opponents? Adapt to Soresu for defense, then counterattack. Wrong. You run. Pride will kill you faster than any blade. If you're outnumbered, you retreat and regroup. Survival trumps honor." Luke's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Anakin turned to Leia. "And you? Your Juyo is powerful, but you're burning energy too fast. In a real fight, exhaustion kills. I was holding back. I don't care. Control your rage, or it will control you. I've seen where that path leads." Leia looked away, her cybernetic left arm, a sleek replacement from her injury by Abeloth years ago in this timeline, clenching into a fist. Later, on the palace balcony overlooking Coruscant's twilight, Luke found Leia staring at the city. "Do you ever wonder what Mother would think of us?" Luke asked quietly. Leia was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was rough. "Every day." Luke moved to stand beside her. He reached out and took her hand, the real one, not the cybernetic. She didn't pull away. "We're not weapons," Luke said. "Tell Father that." "I did. He said we were something better." "Heirs," Leia laughed bitterly. "Same thing, different word." The hologram of Death Star I rotated slowly in the war room. Anakin stood before it, flanked by Grand Moffs, admirals, and engineers. The station was complete, fully operational. A weapon capable of destroying planets. "Target, my lord?" Grand Moff Tarkin asked. "Tatooine." The room went silent. "But sir," one admiral ventured, "there are civilian populations. I was born on Tatooine." Anakin's voice was ice. "I was a slave. That world represents everything I destroyed to become what I am. Let this be a demonstration. The past does not define us. We erase it." He broadcast the announcement across the holonet personally. Every screen in the galaxy showed Emperor Skywalker's face, his golden eyes burning with cold fire. "I was property once. Tatooine was my cage. Today I destroy that cage. Let this be a lesson to the galaxy. Nothing is sacred. Nothing is permanent. Only power endures." Luke and Leia stood beside him on the Death Star's command bridge. Through the viewport, Tatooine hung like a beige marble. The superlaser charged, green hellfire building in the station's focusing dish. "Fire," Anakin said. The beam lanced out. It struck Tatooine's northern hemisphere, punching through the crust in an instant. The planet's mantle boiled. Oceans of sand vaporized. The very core cracked like an egg. Tatooine died screaming. Luke watched in awe. "Father." "That was necessary," Anakin finished. Leia watched in horror as billions of tons of planetary debris spread out like a dying flower. Millions lived there. They were already dead. Anakin's reflection in the viewport was a ghost. Everything on that rock was a corpse wearing skin. The galaxy watched. The Empire was now unassailable. Fear spread like poison through every system. But no one would ever love Emperor Skywalker. Only dread him. Alone in his meditation chamber that night, Anakin held Padmé's Japper snippet, the only artifact he'd kept from his past. The wooden pendant was worn smooth from 15 years of handling. I promised you I'd make them strong, he whispered to the empty air. I promised they'd never be weak, never lose anyone. The snippet didn't answer. Outside, the galaxy trembled in the wake of Tatooine's destruction. And Emperor Anakin Skywalker, the most powerful man alive, sat in darkness and felt nothing at all. 40 years. Emperor Anakin Skywalker was 84 years old, though his face showed barely 50. The Force strain sustained him, but lately, even that technique required more effort. He could feel time pressing against him like a physical weight, demanding payment for decades of defiance. The throne room of the Imperial Palace was silent, except for the hum of holographic star charts rotating in the air. Anakin stood before them, hands clasped behind his back, studying reports that made no sense. 7 outer rim sectors, gone dark. No communications, no hyperspace traffic, no distress signals. Just silence. Grand Admiral Thrawn, Anakin said without turning. The blue-skinned Kiss emerged from the shadows, his red eyes gleaming in the dim light. Age had touched Thrawn as well. He was in his 70s now, his face lined with tactical calculations and Janlu's sickall, but his mind remained sharp as a vibroblade. Emperor. Thrawn's voice carried that perpetual calm, as if the galaxy's collapse was merely an interesting puzzle. Your assessment, not rebellion. Rebellions communicate. They make demands. They leave survivors to spread fear. Thrawn gestured at the star charts. This is erasure, surgical and complete. Anakin's eyes narrowed. You Uzhan Vong. You know of them. I've seen fragments. Visions that made no sense until now. Anakin closed his eyes, reaching into the Force. His foresight, the gift that had never failed him, stretched outward toward the outer rim. I see. Nothing. A void where the Force should be. He opened his eyes, and for the first time in 40 years, genuine unease crossed his face. Dispatch star destroyers to the Dubrillion system. Full battle group. I want confirmation of what we're facing. Thrawn bowed, at once. Something was coming that even his foresight couldn't touch. Something immune to the very power that had made him a god. The bridge of the Star Destroyer Inexorable was organized chaos. Crew pits hummed with activity as the massive warship dropped out of hyperspace near Dubrillion, a minor mining colony on the edge of known space. Scanning for signals, the communications officer reported. Nothing on Imperial channels. No, wait. Unidentified contacts bearing 27 Mark III. On the main viewport, shapes emerged from the darkness between stars. They weren't ships, not in any sense the Empire understood. They were alive. Coral and chitin fused into impossible geometries, pulsing with bioluminescent veins. Dozens of them, ranging from starfighter-sized horrors to cruisers that dwarfed even the Star Destroyer. All hands to battle stations, the captain's voice cracked across the intercom. Launch TIE squadrons. The coral skippers moved like insects, jerking, twitching, propelled by gravity fields that bent space itself. Imperial TIE fighters screamed out to meet them, green laser fire lancing through the void. The weapons hit and disappeared. Micro-singularities bloomed in front of the Vong ships, black holes the size of fists that swallowed laser bolts whole. The coral skippers returned fire with globs of molten plasma that splashed across TIE hulls and burned through durasteel-like acid. Imperial fighters died in silent blooms of flame. Concentrate fire on the lead cruiser, the captain ordered. All batteries maximum output. The Inexorable's turbolasers spoke as one emerald beams converging on a single Uzhan Vong cruiser. The ship's Dalvin basals activated, creating a web of gravitational singularities. 70% of the bombardment vanished into artificial black holes. The remaining 30% scorched the ship's organic hull, leaving smoking craters that oozed bodily fluids. But the ship didn't die. It fired back. Plasma cannons, biological weapons that screamed like dying children, lanced out. The first volley struck the Inexorable's forward shields. They held. The second volley punched through, eating into the hull. Atmosphere vented in white streams. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12. Shield generators failing. All power to. The Vong cruiser fired a third volley. This one targeted the bridge tower. The last thing the crew heard was the captain's scream. Then silence. Coruscant. Imperial Palace. War Room. Anakin stared at the holographic recording transmitted before the inexorable went dark. The bridge, consumed by plasma fire, crew screaming as their flesh melted from their bones, the hull splitting open like rotted fruit. The transmission ended. Leia stood beside him, her cybernetic arm whirring softly. At 40, she had grown into a woman of terrible beauty, her mother's face hardened by years of Sith alchemy and bioweapon research. Her red lightsaber hung at her hip. "They're immune to the Force," she said flatly. "I can feel it even from the recording. They exist outside normal channels. Not immune. Severed." Anakin replayed the footage, his jaw tight. "The Force cannot touch them directly, but we can touch what's around them." His green Jedi robes, an affectation Anakin had allowed, were stained with carbon scoring. At 40, he had become the Empire's sword, tall and powerful, his face weathered by 1,000 battles. 7 more systems confirmed lost, Luke reported. "They're heading toward the core, slowly, methodically, like they're savoring it." Anakin felt it then. The deaths, not individual lives but entire worlds going silent in the Force. Billions of voices crying out and then, nothing. The Vong were butchering the galaxy, and his foresight was blind to them. "We need allies," Thrawn said quietly. Anakin turned to face him. "The Chiss, indeed. The Ascendancy has been monitoring extragalactic threats for centuries. If anyone understands these invaders, it's my people. Then we go." Anakin gestured at the star charts. "Leia, you command Coruscant's defense. Luke, you're with me. Thrawn, plot a course to Scylla." "Father," Leia's voice stopped him. "The Vong are hunting Force users specifically. They've deployed creatures, Voxen, designed to track us. How many Imperial hands have we lost?" He could feel them dying even now, his dark side adepts scattered across the galaxy, hunted by beasts they couldn't sense in the Force, killed by enemies they couldn't predict. His greatest strength had become his greatest weakness. Double their escorts. Pull them back to fortified worlds. He looked at his daughter. "And prepare the bioweapon division. If these creatures hunt us, we'll create something that hunts them." The Superstar Destroyer Executor 2 cut through hyperspace, its massive wedge-shape displacing entire star systems worth of matter energy. Anakin stood on the bridge, Luke at his side, watching the blue-white tunnel rush past. "Do you remember your mother?" Anakin asked suddenly. Luke glanced at him, surprised. "Only what you've told me, and the holo recordings. She would have hated this. All of it. The Empire. The Death Stars. What I've made of you and your sister. Father, I killed her, Luke. Not with my hands, but with my choices. The dark side sustained me, but it couldn't save her. And now," Anakin gestured at the stars beyond the viewport. "Now I've built an empire that can't even see its enemies coming." Luke was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "You gave the galaxy order. Stability. 40 years without civil war. Or 40 years of fear. I wanted to protect you. Both of you. Instead, I turned you into weapons." Anakin looked at his son. "Do you resent me for it?" Luke met his eyes. "Every day. But I understand why you did it. That's not the same as forgiveness." "No, it's not." Scylla, the Chiss homeworld, materialized before them, a frozen jewel of ice and determination. Immediately, the Executor's sensors screamed warnings. Hundreds of ships. Chiss phalanx destroyers, sleek and angular, forming a defensive spear around the planet. "This is Admiral Aralani, of the Kiss Expansionary Defense Fleet." The transmission was ice cold. "You have violated sovereign space. State your purpose or be destroyed." Anakin stepped forward, his presence filling the bridge. "I am Emperor Anakin Skywalker of the Galactic Empire. I seek audience with Admiral Thrawn. A mutual enemy threatens us both, the species you call the Far Outsiders." Silence. Then, "Emperor Skywalker, I did not expect to see you again." A familiar voice, cultured, analytical. "Permission to come aboard." Grand Admiral Thrawn of the Kiss Ascendancy looked the same as he had 40 years ago, ageless in the way only his species could be. He wore white and black Chiss military dress, medals marking decades of service. He studied Anakin with those calculating red eyes. "You look well for your age, Emperor." The force drain technique, I presume? You presume correctly. Anakin gestured to a conference room. We don't have time for pleasantries. The Yuuzhan Vong have invaded. They're immune to my foresight, resistant to direct force attacks, and their biotechnology counters conventional weapons. I need your knowledge. Thrawn settled into a chair with fluid grace. The far outsiders. Yes, we've studied them for generations. They are religious zealots. Pain is holy. Mechanical technology is blasphemy. They worship through destruction. How do we kill them? You don't. You dismantle them. Thrawn activated a holographic display. Their strength is biotechnology, living ships, organic armor, Davin basals that manipulate gravity. But these have weaknesses. The Davin basals can be overloaded. The world ships are slow. And their command structure is rigid. Kill the supreme leader, the fleet fractures. Luke leaned forward. You're saying we assassinate their leader? Precisely. The Ascendancy has developed gravitational torpedoes to disrupt Davin basals. We've also mapped their command protocols. But we lack the fleet strength to engage them directly. Anakin smiled. It was a predator's expression. Then we combine forces, your technology, my firepower. Our enemy won't know what killed them. On one condition. When this war ends, the Ascendancy's independence is respected. We are allies, not subjects. Agreed. They shook hands, the Emperor of the Galaxy and the exile who had become a Grand Admiral. There's one more thing, Thrawn said quietly. Their supreme leader, Omni, he commands from a world ship, a living fortress. To reach him, we must break through their entire fleet. Then we bring everything. Anakin's eyes burned gold. Both Death Stars, every Star Destroyer. The full might of the Empire. We end this in one battle. Ambitious. I didn't conquer the galaxy by being cautious. Thrawn studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. We'll strike at Solest. Draw them out. Then, kill their god. Outside the viewport, the frozen wastes of Scylla stretched to every horizon. Two of the galaxy's greatest tactical minds had just forged an alliance. The Yuuzhan Vong would learn what it meant to threaten the Empire. Anakin stood alone in his quarters that night, staring at Padmé's Japer snippet. I'm 84 years old, he whispered to the wooden pendant. I've ruled for decades, destroyed planets, built an empire on blood and fear, and for the first time, I don't know if I can win. The pendant, as always, didn't answer, but somewhere in the Force, Anakin felt his foresight stir. Not a vision, just a certainty. This war would cost him everything. Again. The Sullust system burned. Imperial Star Destroyers hung in formation like a wall of Durasteel teeth, turbolaser batteries glowing green in the darkness, 300 capital ships, 2 Death Stars flanking the main fleet like twin moons of annihilation. And above them all, the Executor II, Anakin's flagship, its command bridge illuminated like a predator's eye. Across the battlefield, the Yuuzhan Vong responded. Their fleet was a nightmare made flesh, coral skippers swarming like locusts, cruisers pulsing with bioluminescent veins, and at the center, the world ship. It was the size of a small moon, its surface covered in organic growths that looked like tumors in cathedrals fused together. Somewhere inside that monstrosity, Supreme Leader Omni commanded his invasion. Anakin stood on the Executor's bridge, eyes closed, reaching into the Force. He couldn't sense the Vong directly. There were voids, absences where life should be. But he could feel his own fleet, every captain's heartbeat, every gunner's finger on the trigger, every moment of hesitation before the storm. Thrawn, he said quietly. Execute. From below and above the orbital plane, Chiss Phalanx destroyers materialized from hyperspace. The pincer closed. Thrawn's voice crackled across the comm with clinical precision. All Chiss vessels, deploy gravitational torpedoes. Target the Vong shield network. Fire. Blue-white missiles streaked across the void. They struck the invisible gravitational wells generated by the Vong's Davin basals, and overloaded them. The microsingularities collapsed, flickering like dying stars. Imperial Fleet. Anakin's voice cut through every comm channel. Fire at will. 300 Star Destroyers opened up simultaneously. The void turned green. Turbolaser fire converged on the now exposed Vong cruisers, punching through organic hulls. Coral shattered. Flesh burst. Bodily fluids boiled in the vacuum. The first wave of Vong ships simply ceased to exist, vaporized in the opening salvo. But the Vong were zealots. Supreme Leader Omini's voice echoed across their bio-network, translated through screeching organic transmitters. Children of the gods, these machine lovers blaspheme with their dead ships. Show them the embrace of pain. The Vong fleet surged forward. Corral skippers collided with TIE fighters in a maelstrom of plasma and laser fire. A Vong cruiser, half its hull gone, rammed the Star Destroyer Dominance. The impact split the Imperial ship in half, its reactor breaching in a white-hot explosion that consumed both vessels. Thousands died in an instant. Anakin felt them go. Each death was a pinprick in the Force, and he bore every one. "Move the 7th Fleet to Grid Alpha 7, he said, eyes still closed. "Now, sir, that position will expose our flank. Do it." The tactical officer complied. 3 seconds later, a volley of Vong plasma fire saturated the space where the 7th Fleet would have been. Anakin's foresight worked perfectly on his own forces, compensating for his blindness toward the enemy. The Vong couldn't predict him. He couldn't sense them. The battle became a brutal calculus of probability and sacrifice. "Death Stars," Anakin commanded. "Fire." A shadow fell across the battlefield. Death Star eyes superlaser charged, building emerald hellfire in its focusing dish. The beam lanced out, pure concentrated destruction, and struck the Vong fleet's gravitational defense network. Hundreds of Davan basals activated simultaneously, creating a web of micro-singularities. The beam hit, and 40% of its energy vanished into artificial black holes, swallowed by gravity. But 60% punched through. A dozen Vong cruisers simply evaporated. No explosion. No debris. Just gone, erased from existence by the sheer magnitude of energy. The world ship's outer shell cracked. Organic armor peeled away in huge chunks, exposing the pulsing flesh beneath. Death Star 2 fired from a different angle. This beam targeted the world ship's equator. The Davan basals there collapsed under the strain, overloaded, unable to absorb the second sun-killing weapon. A massive wound opened in the world ship's hull, a canyon of exposed tissue and shattered bone-like structures. "Luke," Anakin opened his eyes. "You have your opening." On the tactical display, 30 Imperial assault transports rocketed toward the breach. Inside the lead transport, Luke Skywalker ignited both his lightsabers, green and blue, gifts from his father forged from crystals of defeated Jedi. Around him, 30 clone commandos checked their weapons with mechanical efficiency. 30 seconds to breach, the pilot called back. Luke reached into the Force. He couldn't sense the Vong, but he could feel the absence of them. Voids in the Force shaped like warriors, like living architecture, like the alien wrongness of their entire existence. The transport hit the wound in the world ship's hull and punched through. The interior was a cathedral of flesh. Walls pulsed with circulatory systems. The air was humid, thick with the smell of incense and decay. Bioluminescent growths provided sickly light that turned everything into a fever dream. Amphistaff-wielding Vong warriors charged from side passages, their organic armor glistening wet. Luke moved. His Makashi was designed for confined spaces, economical thrusts, minimal wasted motion. The first warrior died with a blade through his throat. The second lost his arm at the elbow. A third swung his amphistaff like a whip. Luke ducked, the living weapon missing by inches, and drove both sabers through the warrior's chest in an X pattern. The clone commandos opened fire. Blaster bolts ripped through Vong warriors, but their armor absorbed most hits. A warrior tackled a commando, crushing his helmet with bare hands. Another's amphistaff coiled around a trooper's neck and squeezed until vertebrae cracked. "Keep moving," Luke shouted. "Don't let them bog us down." They fought through 3 decks, leaving a trail of Vong corpses and commando bodies. By the time they reached the command throne's approach, Luke's team was down to 15 men. The massive doors ahead pulsed like a heartbeat. Luke kicked them open. The throne room was vast, a space carved from living bone, its ceiling lost in shadows. At the center sat Supreme Leader Omini on a throne of fused vertebrae. He was enormous, 9 feet tall, his body more scar tissue than skin. Organic armor fused directly to his flesh in grotesque patterns. His face was a ruin of ritual scarification, and his eyes burned with fanatical certainty. Surrounding him, 20 slayers. The Vong's deadliest warriors, elite killers who had each murdered 100 enemies. Machine lover, Omini's voice was gravel scraping stone. You profane this holy vessel with your presence. Your sorcery cannot touch me. Your false gods mean nothing. Luke ignited his sabers. I didn't come to debate theology. 20 warriors moving with predatory synchronization. Luke's Makashi became a whirlwind. Every thrust found a gap in armor. Every parry redirected an amphistaff. But they were fast and they were many. A tail barb caught his shoulder, piercing through his robes. Venom flooded his bloodstream. Liquid fire racing through his veins. Luke gritted his teeth. Kept fighting. 1 slayer down. 2. 5. But 1 got through his guard. An amphistaff lashed across his ribs, cracking bone. Luke gasped. Stumbled. Then the wall exploded. Anakin Skywalker entered the throne room, through a hole he'd carved with telekinetic force. He'd crashed his Eta, 2 starfighter through the world ship's hull, ejected mid-flight, and used force flight to slow his descent. He landed beside his son, red lightsaber blazing. I told you not to face a warlord alone, Anakin said. Luke spat blood. And I told you I didn't need backup. You're welcome. They attacked together. Father and son, emperor and heir. Anakin's Gem-So was a battering ram. Overwhelming power that shattered amphistaffs and crushed armor. Luke's Makashi was a rapier, precision strikes that found weakness. The remaining slayers died in seconds. Omini rose from his throne wielding a massive amphistaff that could function as a double-bladed spear. He was fast for his size, the weapon whirling in arcs that could split durasteel. Anakin met him head-on. Their weapons clashed, lightsaber against living serpent. The amphistaff coiled, trying to lock Anakin's blade. Anakin used the force to heat the creature, making it recoil. Omini swung again, the butt of his staff cracking against Anakin's jaw. Blood filled Anakin's mouth. He stumbled back. Luke attacked from the side, both sabers stabbing toward Omini's ribs. The Supreme Leader's armor deflected one blade, caught the other on his staff. He kicked Luke in the chest, sending him flying across the room. Old man, Omini laughed. Your witchcraft fails. You are weak, mechanical, false. Anakin wiped blood from his mouth. Then he smiled. You're right. I can't touch you with the Force. His eyes burned gold. But I can touch what you're wearing. He reached out, not toward Omini, but toward his armor. The organic armor was separate from Omini's body, grown from living creatures, grafted onto him, but still distinct. And that made it vulnerable. Anakin channeled Force Crush, not on the Vong, but on his armor. The chitin plates began to constrict. Omini's eyes widened. He tried to tear the armor off, but it was fused too deeply. The plates squeezed. The mandibles designed to protect now bit. Organic tendrils burrowed inward, into flesh, seeking sustenance. What are you? I'm killing you with your own faith, Anakin said quietly. The armor consumed Omini from the inside. Tendrils pierced organs, mandibles cracked ribs. He screamed, a wet, choking sound, as his body was hollowed out by his own protection. He collapsed, his armor, now empty, clattered to the floor like discarded shells. Luke stood, cradling his broken ribs. That was cruel. I know. Anakin deactivated his saber, but effective. From across the throne room, a massive viewport showed the battle outside. With Omini dead, the Vong fleet was losing cohesion. Ships broke formation. Some fled. Others fought with suicidal rage, ramming Imperial vessels even as they died. Thrawn's voice crackled through Anakin's comlink. Emperor, the Vong are retreating to the unknown regions. This battle is won. Anakin looked at his son. Luke was poisoned, bleeding, his face pale from venom, but alive. At what cost? Anakin asked quietly. Through the Force, he felt the answer. 4 Star Destroyers destroyed. 43,000 Imperial personnel dead. 1 Death Star heavily damaged. They'd won. But the galaxy was bleeding. Medical Bay. Executor 2. Luke lay on a surgical table while medical droids extracted Voxin venom from his system. Anakin watched, standing in the corner like a shadow. Father. Luke's voice was hoarse. That technique you used, turning the armor against Omini. Could you teach me? Anakin was quiet for a long moment. It's not a technique, Luke. It's cruelty, weaponized sadism, using an enemy's protection to kill them from within. He stepped closer. But yes, I'll teach you. Because the galaxy is full of enemies, and mercy is a luxury we can't afford. Luke closed his eyes. Whether in acceptance or pain, Anakin couldn't tell. On the bridge, Thrawn stood before the tactical displays, studying the Vong retreat vectors. Emperor, he said as Anakin entered. The Vong are retreating to the unknown regions. This war is over. For now. Then we've bought time. But time for what? The galaxy is wounded. My empire is fragile. Anakin stared at the stars. And I sense something else stirring. Thrawn nodded slowly. War always creates opportunities for scavengers. In the depths of space, beyond the battle's carnage, something watched. Something that had been waiting a very long time. And it smiled. 2 years after the Yuzan Vong War, the Empire still bled. Star destroyers sat in orbital dry docks, their hulls pockmarked with repairs. Clone production facilities ran at maximum capacity, replacing the 40,000 dead. Resources flowed outward to rebuild devastated Outer Rim sectors, and Emperor Anakin Skywalker looked mortal. He stood before the mirror in his private chambers, studying his reflection. The Force strain sustained him, yes, but the Vong War had cost more than lives. It had cost energy. For the first time in decades, gray touched his temples. Lines creased the corners of his eyes. He was 86 years old, and it showed. A chime at the door. Enter. Leia walked in, datapad in hand. Her cybernetic arm whirred softly as she manipulated the holo display. Mining colony. Estrin sector. Total casualties. 374. No survivors. Rebels? No. She expanded the image. Bodies arranged in geometric patterns. Symbols carved into durasteel walls. These markings, their old Sith script, from the Great Hyperspace War era. He took the datapad studying the symbols. His knowledge of Sith history was extensive, learned from holocrons Palpatine had hoarded, augmented by 40 years of research. Impossible. We eradicated the Sith. Known Sith. Leia's voice was clinical. Thrawn believes there may be survivors from the Omen, a Sith vessel that vanished 5,000 years ago during Naga Sado's war. Anakin handed back the datapad. Send a task force. I want intelligence, not corpses. Already dispatched. But father, she hesitated. You look tired. I am tired. The Vong merely killed us. My foresight failed. And now this. He gestured at the datapad. Some ghost from the past thinks this is the moment to strike. Because it is. Leia's golden eyes met his. The Empire is weakened. If I were planning an attack, I'd do it now. Then it's fortunate you're on my side. For now. The words hung between them like a blade. Anakin studied his daughter. Brilliant, ruthless, shaped by his own hand into a weapon of terrible precision. And somewhere beneath the Sith alchemy and bioweapon research, he could still see Padmé's face. Leia. I'll coordinate the investigation. She turned and left before he could finish. Anakin stood alone, feeling the weight of years pressing down on him like a physical force. Kesh, the Lost Tribe's homeworld. In a temple carved from volcanic cliffs, Darth Talon knelt before the High Council. Her crimson skin was covered in black Sith tattoos, each one earned through ritual combat. Her right lekka had been severed years ago during a duel, now replaced with a cybernetic implant that pulsed with dark side energy. She was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. High Lord Talon. Council Elder Vestris spoke from his throne. Your raids have drawn imperial attention. This is reckless. Reckless? Talon's voice was silk over razors. We have hidden for 5,000 years while pretenders ruled. Darth Bane's rule of two turned the Sith into a dying philosophy. Palpatine failed. Skywalker is weak, bled by war, aged by time. If we don't strike now, we never will. He will retaliate. Talon's lightsaber ignited, the crimson blade hovering inches from Vestris's throat. The other council members tensed, but no one moved to intervene. Then let him come. Her eyes blazed gold. I will carve his name into the Temple of Ancients alongside every other failed emperor. The Lost Tribe does not cower. She deactivated her saber and turned to address the full council. 50,000 Sith warriors, trained from birth, forged in combat, We are not Palpatine's apprentices, hiding in shadows. We are an army. She gestured to the holographic display showing the galaxy. Korriban, Ziost, Dromund Kaz. We reclaim the ancestral Sith worlds. And then we take Coruscant. Silence. Then, slowly, the council members began to nod. Talon smiled. It was a predator's expression. Prepare the fleet. We move in 1 week. Linara System, a backwater staging ground where the Lost Tribe had assembled 200 warships. In a cantina on the orbital station, a blue-skinned Chiss sat alone, nursing a drink he hadn't touched. He wore civilian clothes, but his bearings screamed military. His red eyes tracked every movement in the room with tactical precision. Thrawn, a cloaked figure, approached. Lord Vestris, the council elder who had survived Talon's threat through pure political cunning. You're the mercenary tactician? Vestris asked. I am. Thrawn's voice was measured. Your message indicated the Lost Tribe requires strategic consultation against Skywalker himself, an ambitious target, also profitable if the compensation matches the risk. Vestris sat down, lowering his voice. We're massing forces at Linara. We'll strike Korriban first, then push toward the core. But Skywalker's foresight is a problem, Thrawn finished. He sees futures, but the future is probability, not certainty. I can provide strategic consultation that accounts for his precognitive abilities. For the right price. They negotiated. Vestris revealed fleet positions, deployment schedules, Talon's aggressive timeline. Thrawn listened, asked pointed questions, and subtly extracted every tactical detail. Finally, they shook hands. Thrawn watched Vestris leave, then activated a subspace transmitter hidden in his sleeve. Emperor, I have the intelligence. They're staging at Linara. I recommend immediate deployment. Withdraw before they realize. One more thing. Thrawn's eyes narrowed. Their leader, Darth Talon, she suspects me. If she discovers the deception before I extract, then kill her. I'm not a Force user, Emperor. I know. That's why you'll succeed. The transmission ended. Thrawn ordered a second drink and waited. If Talon suspected him, she'd make a move soon. And when she did, he'd need to be faster, smarter, and more ruthless than a Sith Lord who'd killed her way to power. He didn't like those odds. But then again, he'd beaten worse. Linara orbit. 3 days later, the Lost Tribe's fleet hung in formation. 200 warships of archaic Sith design augmented with modern technology scavenged from the unknown regions. On the flagship's bridge, Darth Talon stood before the viewport, her dual lightsabers hanging from her belt. Status? She demanded. All ships ready, High Lord. Hyperspace coordinates locked for Korriban. We await your command. Talon closed her eyes, reaching into the Force. The dark side sang to her. Power, conquest, the destiny that had been stolen from the Sith for millennia. She could feel Korriban calling, the ancestral world where Sith Lords had trained for thousands of years. It would be theirs again. Prepare to. The tactical officer interrupted. High Lord, contacts exiting hyperspace. Bearing 77 Mark 9. The viewport filled with Imperial Star Destroyers. Dozens of them, emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation, cutting off the Lost Tribe's escape vectors. At their center, the Executor 2, its massive bulk blotting out stars. Talon's eyes widened. Impossible. How did they... The Chiss. Lord Vestris burst onto the bridge, his face pale. He was a spy. Thrawn betrayed us. Talon's hand shot out, force-choking Vestris. He clawed at his throat, gasping. You let him into our ranks. You trusted a mercenary. She squeezed harder. Vestris's face turned purple. This is your failure. She released him. He collapsed, coughing. All ships, engage defensive formation. Return fire. Turbolaser fire ripped through the Lost Tribe fleet like a scythe through grain. The Sith warships were powerful, yes, but they'd been caught with cold engines, unprepared. 3 ships exploded in the first volley. 5 more lost primary systems. On the Executor's bridge, Anakin stood with hands clasped behind his back, watching the slaughter with cold eyes. They expected us to wait, to investigate, to give them time to scatter. His voice was emotionless. Thrawn gave us the perfect ambush. Beside him, Luke coordinated fighter squadrons, TIE bombers making their attack runs. Estimated 40% of their fleet will be disabled within 10 minutes. Finish it. The Imperial fleet pressed forward, systematic and ruthless. The Lost Tribe's ships tried to flee, but their hyperdrives hadn't spooled up. They were trapped. Talon screamed orders coordinating defense, but it was useless. Her fleet was being massacred. "High Lord," the communications officer's voice cracked. "We're reading power signatures aboard the Executor. They're preparing to board. Let them come." Talon ignited both lightsabers, crimson blades casting bloody light across the bridge. "I'll kill Skywalker myself." The boarding pods hit Talon's flagship like meteors, punching through the hull. Blast doors tore open. Dark troopers, heavily armored clone commandos, poured through, blasters blazing. Behind them, Anakin and Luke. Father and son moved through the corridor with lethal efficiency. Sith warriors charged, lightsabers ignited. Luke's dual blades wove a pattern of green and blue, his Makashi precision dropping warriors with surgical strikes. Anakin didn't bother with finesse. He used the Force to grab 3 Sith simultaneously, slammed them into the walls hard enough to crack armor, then crushed their windpipes. A 4th warrior lunged. Anakin's red blade took his head off in a single motion. They carved a path to the bridge. The doors exploded inward. Talon stood waiting, alone. Her council had fled, or died. She was all that remained, Emperor Skywalker. Her voice dripped venom. The legend, "You don't look like a god to me." Good. Anakin stepped forward, lightsaber humming. "I'm not." She attacked. Ataru, the acrobatic form. Talon became a blur of crimson light, flipping over Anakin, striking from impossible angles. Her blades were everywhere, a storm of plasma and fury. Anakin met her with Gemso's brutal power. Each of his strikes could shatter durasteel. Each parry redirected her momentum, but she was fast, faster than he'd been in decades. Luke moved to flank. Talon sensed him. Force pushed him into a bulkhead. The impact cracked his ribs. He gasped, slumping. "Predictable," Talon hissed. Mid-flip, Anakin saw it. Shatterpoint, a technique he'd mastered over 80 years of combat. The weak points in reality, in defense, in being. Her right leku, the cybernetic replacement. The junction where flesh met machine. His blade flicked up as she descended from a leap. The cybernetic leku severed cleanly, sparking as it fell. Talon screamed, her balance destroyed. She crashed to the deck, blood spraying from the stump. Anakin's blade hovered at her throat. "You lose." Before he could deliver the killing blow, the flagship's hyperdrive engaged. The entire ship lurched, structural integrity failing. Bulkheads groaned. "Father," Luke shouted, "we need to leave. Now." Talon, half conscious, managed a bloody smile. "You won. Nothing." Her hand slapped a control panel. Emergency life pod protocols activated. Anakin and Luke were forced to retreat as the ship tore itself apart. They reached their boarding shuttle seconds before the flagship exploded. Through the viewport, Anakin watched a single life pod streak toward a surviving Sith cruiser. Talon had escaped. Kesh. 1 week later, Darth Talon knelt in the temple, her severed leku replaced with a temporary cybernetic implant. Around her, the surviving council members whispered in the shadows. 75% of their fleet. Gone. Their invasion. Broken before it began. She looked up at the statue of Nagasato, the ancient Sith Lord who had founded their order. "This isn't over," she whispered. "Skywalker will die. I swear it." On Coruscant, Anakin stood on the palace balcony with Thrawn. "The tribe is crippled," Thrawn said quietly. "But Talon lives. She will return. Let her." Anakin's eyes reflected the city lights below. "Next time, I'll make sure she doesn't walk away." "Emperor, in my experience, overconfidence is the greatest vulnerability." Anakin didn't respond, but somewhere deep in the Force he felt a stirring. Ancient, chaotic, hungry, something worse than the Valm. Worse than the Lost Tribe. Something that had been waiting for him to weaken, and it was almost ready to strike. 6 months of skirmishes, hit-and-run attacks, Talon's raiders striking Imperial convoys, then vanishing into the unknown regions. The Empire bleeding resources to chase ghosts. But something else was happening. In the Imperial Medical Facility on Coruscant, 3 of Anakin's most powerful adepts, his Imperial hands, had been committed to psychiatric care. They sat in padded cells, eyes vacant, mouths moving soundlessly. Leia stood outside the observation window, watching them with clinical detachment. She'd sedated them, scanned their brains, even used Sith alchemy to probe their minds. The results made no sense. "What are they saying?" Anakin asked, joining her. "The same thing. Over and over." Leia activated a recording. The voices overlapped, creating a chorus of madness. "The mother comes. Tentacles in the dark. She's hungry. She's coming. The mother. The mother. The mother." "Show me their brain scans." Leia brought up holographic displays, neural patterns that looked like someone had carved channels through their minds. Not damage, alteration. Something had burrowed into their consciousness and reshaped it. "This isn't the Vong, isn't the Lost Tribe." Leia's voice was tight. "This is something else, something in the Force itself." Anakin closed his eyes, reaching out through the Force. He touched the minds of the afflicted hands, felt the corruption there, and beneath it, something vast, something that made the dark side feel like a candle next to a star. He jerked back, gasping. "Father?" Leia grabbed his arm. "Get Thrawn, and contact the Lost Tribe. Tell them we need to talk. The tribe, they're the enemy. Not anymore." Anakin's voice was iron, not compared to what's coming. Kesh, Temple of the Ancients. Darth Talon stood before her own council, listening to reports of Sith warriors going mad. 40 in the last month. They babbled about tentacles, about a mother figure, about something awakening in the maw. She'd consulted the ancient holocrons, found references to Abeloth, the bringer of chaos, a being sealed away during the Clone Wars, forgotten by history. Until now, her comlink chimed. Imperial frequency. She activated it. Anakin Skywalker's face appeared, holographic and grim. "Darth Talon. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you, Emperor. Next time we meet, I'll take your head. You won't get the chance. Something's killing Force users, your people and mine. It doesn't care about our war." Talon's eyes narrowed. "Abeloth. You know of it? Her. The mother. The holocrons mention her." Talon's grip tightened on her lightsaber. "Sealed in the maw. Fed on Force energy. If the seal's broken, then we fight her together, or we die separately." Talon was silent for a long moment. Pride warred with pragmatism. Finally, "Coordinates. I'll meet you. But this doesn't end our war. I wouldn't dream of it." The transmission cut. Linara system. Neutral ground. 2 fleets hung in space. Imperial Star Destroyers on one side, Sith warships on the other. Between them, a single shuttle from each side approached a derelict space station. Anakin emerged first, flanked by Luke and Thrawn. His red lightsaber hung at his belt, but his hands remained visible. Talon descended from her shuttle, alone. Her cybernetic Leku replacement gleamed in the station's dim light. Both her sabers remained on her belt. They met in the center of the station's docking bay. Emperor, Darth Talon. Luke's hand moved toward his lightsaber. Talon's eyes tracked the motion. "Try it, boy. I'll kill you before you ignite. Peace." Anakin's voice cut through the tension. "We're here because something worse than either of us is waking up. Abeloth." Talon circled him slowly. "The mother of Mortis. Corruption made manifest. The holocrons say she drove the Celestials to war. That she. A presence flooded the space. Not dark side, not light, but something between. Something that felt like drowning in midnight. Through the viewport, space itself seemed to tear. A rift opened. Not hyperspace, not a wormhole. Reality simply unraveled, and through it came something that should not exist. A ship, if it could be called that. Organic and writhing, covered in what looked like pulsating flesh and grasping appendages. Abeloth had arrived. The thing that appeared on Talon's flagship wasn't human anymore. She materialized in the bridge, a woman with golden hair and a serene smile. Beautiful if you didn't look too closely. If you didn't see the mouth that stretched too wide, the teeth like needles, the fingers that were just slightly too long. "Hello, children," Abeloth said in a voice like grinding stone. A Sith warrior raised his blaster. She looked at him, His scream started immediately. His body convulsed, skin rippling as something burrowed through him from the inside. Tentacles, thin as hair, strong as durasteel, erupted from his mouth, his eyes, his chest. He collapsed, a hollowed husk. The bridge crew fled, all except Leia. She'd been aboard the Sith flagship as part of the diplomatic delegation. Now she stood alone, staring at the abomination before her. Force user. Abeloth's smile widened impossibly. I can taste your power. Dark and bitter. Delicious. Leia ignited her red lightsaber. Stay back. Abeloth moved. Faster than thought. Faster than the Force could warn. Her hand, if it could be called a hand, shot forward. Tentacle fingers wrapped around Leia's left arm, and pulled. The arm severed at the elbow. Not cut, torn. The cybernetic limb sparked and fell. Blood sprayed. Leia screamed. Abeloth's second strike came before the scream ended. Claws raked across Leia's torso, ribs cracking like kindling. She collapsed, gasping, blood pooling beneath her. So fragile, Abeloth cooed. Your father thinks he's powerful, but I was born from the Force itself. I am chaos. I am hunger. I am... Dual crimson blades pierced her back. Talon, attacking from behind, drove both lightsabers through Abeloth's spine. The blades erupted from her chest. Abeloth laughed. She reached behind herself, her arms bending in ways human arms shouldn't, and grabbed both sabers. The plasma seared her flesh, but she didn't care. She absorbed the energy, her body glowing with stolen light. Then she hurled Talon across the bridge. The Sith Lord hit a bulkhead hard enough to dent the metal. Her vision swam. She tried to rise, but her body wouldn't respond. Abeloth turned back to Leia, still bleeding on the floor. I think I'll save you for later. Your suffering will be exquisite. She phased through the hull, walking through solid metal as if it were air, and vanished. Both fleets detected her presence moving toward the derelict station. Toward Anakin. Father, Luke's voice cracked across the comm. Leia's been hit. She's losing blood. Get her to medical. Now. Anakin's eyes blazed gold. He could feel his daughter's agony through the Force, could sense her life draining away. I'll handle this. Abeloth crawling across the hull like an insect, her true form visible now. No longer beautiful, just wrong. Elongated limbs, tentacles sprouting from her back, eyes like black holes. She smashed through the viewport. Air rushed out, debris whirled. Anakin used the Force to create a barrier, holding the atmosphere in through sheer will. Abeloth stood before him, impossibly tall, her form shifting between human and nightmare. The chosen one, she said. I've been waiting for you. Your power, I can feel it. Decades of the dark side sustaining you, making you strong. Give it to me. Feed me. Anakin ignited his lightsaber. No, she attacked. Her tentacles lashed out, a dozen of them moving independently, each one capable of piercing durasteel. Anakin's blade moved in a defensive pattern, severing 3, 4, 5, but they regenerated, flesh knitting itself back together. She was inside his guard. A tentacle wrapped around his throat, squeezing. Anakin channeled Force lightning white gold energy that had destroyed Plagueis. It struck Abeloth full force. She absorbed it, her body glowing brighter. More, she whispered. Give me more. Anakin realized the truth. Direct Force attacks fed her, made her stronger. He changed tactics. Using the Force, he grabbed chunks of the station, durasteel beams, support columns, entire bulkheads. He hurled them at Abeloth, not with Force lightning but with pure telekinetic violence. Metal crashed into her. She staggered, tentacles thrashing. A beam pierced her shoulder. She screamed, a sound that shattered what remained of the viewport. Father, Luke's voice. Get clear. The station's collapsing. Anakin retreated, using Force speed to reach the shuttle. Behind him, Abeloth tore through the debris, her form shifting, adapting, hunting. The shuttle launched. Abeloth grabbed onto the hull, tentacles digging into metal. Talon's ship fired. Turbolaser bolts struck Abeloth directly. She lost her grip, tumbling into space. But she didn't die. She phased away, back into her living ship, her laughter echoing through the Force. Imperial Medical Bay, Coruscant. Leia lay in a Bacta tank, her body broken. Medical droids worked frantically. Cybernetic reconstruction, organ repair, blood transfusion. Anakin stood outside watching through the glass. His daughter. His brilliant, ruthless daughter. Reduced to this by a creature he couldn't kill. She'll live, the head medical droid reported. But the injuries are severe. Full recovery will take months. Luke stood beside his father, his face pale. What was that thing? Abeloth. The mother. Something the Force itself created and then rejected. Anakin's voice was hollow. She feeds on Force energy. Direct attacks make her stronger. Then how do we kill her? I don't know. For the first time in 40 years, Emperor Anakin Skywalker admitted, I don't know. Thrawn entered, datapad in hand. I've been reviewing the ancient texts. Abeloth was sealed on Endor once, the forest moon, a nexus of Force energy. Anakin turned. You're suggesting we track her there? I'm suggesting that if she was sealed once, she can be sealed again, or... Thrawn paused. Destroyed through environmental means. Not Force attacks, but overwhelming physical force. You want me to drop a moon on her? I want you to consider all options, because direct confrontation nearly cost you both your children. Anakin looked back at Leia, floating in the Bacta, her face peaceful despite the trauma. Assemble the fleet. Contact Talon. Tell her we're hunting the mother. And if she refuses, she won't. Abeloth nearly killed her too. Anakin's eyes burned. This ends on Endor. One way or another. In her Bacta tank, Leia's eyes flickered open beneath the healing fluid. Even unconscious, she'd heard every word, and somewhere deep in her mind where Abeloth's presence had touched her, something whispered, Come to me, child. I can give you power your father never could. I can make you whole. Leia's hand, the one remaining flesh hand, clenched into a fist. The whisper continued, patient and inevitable. All you have to do is let me in. Endor. The forest moon. Massive trees stretched toward the sky, their trunks thick as star destroyers, their canopy blotting out the sun. The air smelled of moss and decay and something else. Raw Force energy. Latent and wild. Anakin led the combined force personally. 500 Imperial soldiers in white armor, 200 Sith warriors in black robes, and at the front himself, Luke and Talon. 3 Force users united against a common enemy. The forest was too dense for heavy vehicles. They moved on foot, weapons ready, every shadow suspect. She's here, Anakin said quietly. I can feel her. Talon's hand rested on her lightsaber. So can I. The Force is screaming. Luke scanned the tree line with electro-binoculars. Movement. 300 meters bearing north-northwest. Something large. They advanced. The forest grew darker. The trees here were ancient, their bark scarred with symbols that predated the Republic. This was a place of power, a nexus where the Force pooled like water in a basin. Perfect for a trap. Abeloth emerged from a massive hollow tree, her true form. No pretense of humanity now. 12 feet tall, skin translucent like a corpse left in water, dozens of tentacles writhing from her back. Her eyes were black voids with pinpricks of starlight, and when she opened her mouth, it stretched down to her sternum. Children of the Force, her voice was every nightmare given sound. You've come to feed me. How thoughtful. She opened her mouth wider. The Force scream began. It wasn't sound. It was psychic violence, a wave of dark side energy that hit like a physical blow. Soldiers collapsed immediately, blood streaming from their eyes and ears. Sith warriors broke formation, turning on each other in sudden madness. Trees exploded, wood shredded. The ground cracked, only the strongest Force users remained standing. Anakin, Luke, Talon, but even they were staggered, blood dripping from their noses. Advance! Anakin shouted. Don't let her build momentum. They charged. Talon leaped first, her Ataru form turning her into a crimson blur. She slashed at Abeloth's torso. Black ichor sprayed, but the wound knitted itself closed in seconds. Luke attacked from the flank, both sabers cutting through 3 tentacles. The appendages fell, twitching then regenerated. Anakin came at her head-on, his gemso strikes powerful enough to crack stone. His blade carved through Abeloth's shoulder, severing her left arm. She laughed. The arm grew back. New tentacles sprouted from the wound. She grabbed Talon mid-leap, tentacles wrapping around the Sith Lord's throat. Child of ambition and rage, Abeloth cooed, drawing Talon close. You taste delicious. She began to drain Talon's life force. The Lethan's crimson skin paled, her tattoos fading, her eyes dulling. Anakin channeled the Force, not attacking Abeloth directly, but the environment. He grabbed a massive tree 200 feet tall and telekinetically ripped it from the ground. He hurled it at Abeloth. The tree crashed down, tons of wood pinning her beneath its weight. She released Talon, who dropped, gasping. But Abeloth was already tearing through the timber, tentacles like steel cables shredded wood. More trees! Anakin shouted. Bury her. Luke and Talon, recovering, added their power. 3 more trees uprooted and fell. Then 5 more. A mountain of timber crashed down, burying Abeloth beneath tons of ancient wood. The forest shook with the impact. Silence. Anakin stood, breathing hard, sweat pouring down his face. The effort of moving that much mass was staggering, even for him. Is she? Luke began. Tentacles burst from the pile. Abeloth's head emerged, her mouth opening impossibly wide. She was building another scream. Anakin closed his eyes. He had seconds. Maybe less. He needed power. More than the dark side. More than any technique he'd mastered. He needed to end this. Now, he spread his arms, reaching into the Force with everything he had. Not drawing from the dark side alone. Not from the light. From the raw Force itself. The energy that flowed through all living things. Through the forest. Through the moon. Through reality. Force eruption. A technique he'd theorized but never attempted. Channeling all his power into a single, planet-shattering blast. But it required time. 30 seconds minimum to build the charge. Abeloth wouldn't give him that. 20 seconds. The dark side energy erupted from him. A visible aura of crimson lightning crackling around his body. The ground trembled beneath his feet. 25 seconds. Abeloth broke free, tentacles emerging, her scream building. Talon watched in awe and terror. The power radiating from Anakin was beyond anything she'd seen. Beyond Sith, beyond Jedi, something primal. 28 seconds. Abeloth's head fully emerged, her mouth opening. Anakin couldn't hold it longer. The energy was tearing him apart from the inside. But then, a figure stepped from the shadows. Robed, face hidden. The presence in the Force was immense, old, calculating, soaked in dark side knowledge. The figure raised one hand. Abeloth froze, not pinned by wood, not restrained by physics, held by the Force itself. Her thrashing slowed. Her tentacles stopped mid-strike. Now, Skywalker. The figure's voice was calm, ancient. Unleash it. Anakin's eyes snapped open, pure molten gold, blazing like stars. He screamed. All the accumulated Force energy exploded outward. Not lightning, not fire. Pure annihilation, a sphere of Force devastation that expanded from Anakin as the center. It struck Abeloth at point-blank range. Her body disintegrated, flesh burning, tentacles shriveling. The scream that had been building in her throat cut off as her vocal cords turned to ash. She collapsed. Her form crumbled like sand in a hurricane. The sphere continued expanding, flattening trees in a 500-foot radius, turning everything to scorched earth. When it finally dissipated, Anakin collapsed. He fell to his knees, gasping, every muscle in his body screaming. The Force eruption had drained him completely. He'd used power he didn't have, borrowed from his own life force to fuel the attack. Luke ran to him. Father! Talon stared at the crater. Abeloth's remains, or what passed for remains, were scattered ash. Is she? Talon's voice was hoarse. One of her avatars, the robed figure said, stepping into the light. Not full light. Just enough to see the outline of a Mune face, disfigured, one eye milky white, breathing labored through a respirator hidden beneath the robes. The presence was unmistakable. Talon's eyes widened. That signature, I know it from the old texts. Darth Plagueis. Anakin gasped, still on his knees. The figure inclined his head. Impressive. Even after all these years, you recognize me. You're dead. Palpatine killed you 65 years ago. Palpatine thought he killed me. Plagueis's voice carried grim satisfaction. But I am the master of life and death. Did you think I wouldn't prepare for betrayal? Flashback. 32. BBY. Naboo. Palpatine stood over Plagueis's body, Force lightning still crackling from his fingers. The Mune's flesh was charred, his breathing stopped, his presence in the Force gone. Palpatine smiled. The apprentice has become the master. He left the room. Beneath the corpse, hidden in a secret chamber, a clone body activated. Imperfect. Weak. Disfigured from accelerated growth, Plagueis's consciousness, preserved through midichlorian manipulation, transferred at the moment of death. His essence flowed like water into the new vessel. The clone's eyes opened. It took him days to crawl from the chamber, weeks to reach the hidden ship he'd prepared, months to begin the slow, agonizing process of strengthening the clone body through midichlorian manipulation, years to fully recover, decades to prepare. Present. Endor. I've been watching you, Skywalker. Plagueis circled Anakin slowly. Studying you, you're everything I hope to create. Power without the weakness of sentiment. I have sentiment, Anakin spat. My children are weapons, tools you've forged to serve your empire. Don't pretend you're different from me. Luke helped Anakin to his feet. Why help us? She grows stronger with chaos, and a galaxy consumed by her tentacles serves no one. Plagueis turned his milky eye toward Luke. But understand, I helped you destroy an avatar. Abeloth herself still exists in the Force. She will return. Then we'll kill her again, Talon said, her voice hard. Plagueis laughed, a wet wheezing sound. Confidence. I admire that, but you cannot kill what exists beyond death. Abeloth is eternal. The best you can do is delay her. Anakin's vision swam. The Force eruption had cost too much. He could feel his body failing, his heart struggling. What do you want, Plagueis? The same thing I've always wanted. To master the Force. To cheat death. To rule. The ancient Sith stepped closer. I could help you, Skywalker. Show you techniques Palpatine never learned. Together, we could. No. The dark sides. My own ambitions. Anakin's voice was steel despite his weakness. I won't kneel to you. Pity. Plagueis stepped back into shadow. Then I'll wait. Your empire is crumbling. Your children are damaged. Your enemies multiply. When you fall, and you will, I'll be there to pick up the pieces. If you interfere with my empire, I won't. Not yet. Watching you struggle is far more educational. Plagueis's form began to fade, phasing out of normal space through some technique no one present understood. But know this, Chosen One, when we fought Abeloth today, I established a connection. A link through the midichlorians I touched when I held her. Anakin's eyes widened. What did you do? Yet. Plagueis's voice echoed as he vanished completely. But your foresight, that gift you rely on so desperately, may not be as reliable as you think. Luke helped Anakin back toward the shuttles. Behind them, Talon organized the survivors, less than half the original Force. The rest were dead or mad, driven insane by Abeloth's scream. Father, Luke said quietly. What did he mean? About your foresight? I don't know. But Anakin did. A terrible suspicion was forming. Plagueis had mastered midichlorian manipulation, could influence them remotely, override natural defenses. If he'd established a connection with Anakin's midichlorians during their brief cooperation against Abeloth, he could poison Anakin's visions, feed him false futures, turn his greatest strength into his greatest weakness. We need to go, Anakin said. Now, get me back to Coruscant. What about Abeloth? She's gone. For now, but Plagueis, Anakin's jaw tightened. He's the real threat, and he just made his opening move. On the shuttle back, Anakin sat alone, meditating. He reached into the Force, seeking visions of the future. They came. Clear. Precise. Too precise. He saw victory. Saw the Empire prospering. Saw his children at his side, loyal and strong. But the visions felt hollow, like someone had painted them for his benefit. For the first time in his life, Anakin Skywalker didn't trust his own foresight, and somewhere in the galaxy, Hidden in a station built from his own paranoia, Darth Plagueis smiled. The game had begun. 1 year after Endor, the whispers began. Leia stood in her private laboratory deep beneath the Imperial Palace, surrounded by Sith alchemical equipment, vials of synthesized poisons, biological weapons suspended in stasis fields, and, in the center, a holographic projection of cellular structures, midichlorians, magnified 1,000 times. Her left arm was fully replaced now. Sleek cybernetics, stronger than flesh, interfaced directly with her nervous system. But the phantom pain remained. And with it, the dreams. Every night, the same voice. Calm, ancient, promising. Power your father hoards, knowledge he keeps from you, freedom from his shadow. She'd tried to block it out. Meditation, Sith techniques to shield her mind. Nothing worked. The voice was inside her midichlorians themselves. Her comlink chimed, "Lady Leia, your father requests your presence in the throne room." The throne room was empty except for Anakin. He stood before the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, staring at Coruscant's endless sprawl. "You wanted to see me?" Leia asked. "I'm losing my foresight." No preamble. Just the admission, stark and terrible. "The visions come, but I don't trust them anymore. Plagueis did something on Endor. I can feel it." "What does this mean?" "It means I'm vulnerable. For the first time in decades, I can't see the enemy's moves before they make them." He turned to face her, his eyes still gold, but tired. "I need you sharper than ever. Luke commands the fleets, but you're my intelligence, my eyes in the shadows. Can I trust you?" The question hung in the air. Leia met his gaze. "Of course, father." But in her mind, the voice whispered, "Liar." That night, in her quarters, it happened. Leia sat in meditation, trying to center herself. The voice had been growing stronger, more insistent. Now it manifested fully. A holographic figure appeared before her, not quite solid, but present. Darth Plagueis, his disfigured Mune face illuminated by the room's dim light. "You've been resisting me," he said conversationally. "Admirable, but futile." Leia's hand went to her lightsaber. "Get out of my head. I'm not in your head. I'm in your midichlorians. There's a difference." He circled her slowly. "On Endor, when Abeloth wounded you, she created an opening, a vulnerability. I simply took advantage." "Why me?" "Because you're brilliant. Because you're ambitious. Because deep down, beneath all that loyalty, you hate him." Plagueis leaned closer. "Your father sees you as a tool. Luke is the heir, the warrior, the golden child. You're the dark science experiment, the one who builds his weapons while your brother takes the glory." "That's not true? Then why does it hurt to hear it?" Leia said nothing. "I can give you what he never will. Respect, power, the knowledge to surpass him." Plagueis extended a hand. "I've studied the Force for a century. I've mastered life and death. I can teach you to manipulate midichlorians on a cellular level, to create life, to extend life, to become truly immortal. In exchange for what? Simple. Help me eliminate Anakin and Luke. In return, I give you the Empire. I will be your advisor. Nothing more. The throne is yours." Leia stared at the holographic hand. Everything she'd ever wanted, offered on a silver platter. Recognition. Power. Freedom from her father's shadow. But the price? "I need time to think. Of course, but not too much time." Plagueis's form began to fade. "Opportunities like this don't last forever, and neither does your father." He vanished. Leia sat alone in the darkness, her cybernetic hand trembling. "What am I doing?" But she already knew the answer. 2 weeks later, Death Star 2 hung in orbit above Coruscant, a technological marvel even more powerful than its predecessor. Luke commanded it personally, overseeing weapons tests and defensive drills. Leia arrived via shuttle, security clearance codes validated. She walked through the corridors with the confidence of someone who belonged, past checkpoints staffed by officers who knew her face. She reached the command bridge. Luke was there, studying tactical displays with several admirals. "Sister." He smiled when he saw her. "This is unexpected. Father didn't mention you were coming." Surprise inspection. Sith Alchemy Division wants to test a new bioweapon. I need access to the lower levels. On the Death Star, controlled environment, perfect for containment. She placed a hand on his shoulder. The real hand, not the cybernetic. Trust me, he did. That was the problem. I'll authorize it. But Leia, he lowered his voice. Be careful. Father's been on edge since Endor. He suspects something. I know. He suspects everyone. Even me. Especially me. She descended to the lower levels, where research facilities hummed with activity. But she didn't go to the bioweapon labs. She went to the command override station. Plagueis had given her the codes, ancient Sith encryption that he'd infiltrated into Imperial systems decades ago. She input them, watching as security protocols fell away like cobwebs. With 3 keystrokes, she seized control of Death Star 2. Alarms shrieked. The station's command structure shifted. Every terminal on the bridge suddenly displayed the same message. Command override. Leia Organa Skywalker. Luke stared in disbelief. What? Computer restore command authority? Access denied. Leia? He activated his comlink. Sister, what's happening? Her voice came through every speaker on the station. I'm sorry, Luke, but I'm done being Father's weapon. Death Star 2 is under new management. Before Imperial forces could react, the station's hyperdrive engaged. Death Star 2 vanished into hyperspace, taking Luke and 3,000 crew with it. Coruscant, Imperial Palace, throne room. Anakin felt it the moment it happened, his daughter's betrayal rippling through the Force like a blade through flesh. He screamed, and every window in the throne room shattered. Glass rained down. The guards outside stumbled back. Leia! Thrawn entered, datapad in hand, his expression unreadable. Emperor, I've confirmed it. Death Star 2 just jumped to hyperspace. Unauthorized. Lady Leia transmitted a message before departure. The Empire needs new leadership. Anakin's hands shook, not with age, with rage barely contained. Where did she go? Unknown. But I'm analyzing the jump vector. Thrawn paused. Emperor, this feels coordinated, planned. She had override codes that shouldn't exist. Plagueis. The name was venom in Anakin's mouth. He's been in her head since Endor, manipulating her, poisoning her against me. Then we find her. Bring her back. No. Anakin closed his eyes. When he opened them, the gold had darkened to ember. We prepare for war. Leia's brilliant. If Plagueis has turned her, she'll strike where I'm weakest. He reached into the Force, seeking visions of where Leia had taken the Death Star. The vision came immediately. Clear. Precise. Glavis Ringworld. An ancient megastructure in the unknown regions. Plagueis' hidden base. He saw himself victorious. Saw Luke at his side. Saw Plagueis defeated and Leia redeemed. The vision was perfect. Too perfect. Thrawn's words echoed. This feels convenient. Grand Admiral, Anakin said slowly, you've reviewed the intelligence. Given our current fleet positions, how long would it take to mobilize for an assault on the unknown regions? 3 days minimum. And if I had a vision telling me exactly where to strike, I would question its source. Thrawn's red eyes gleamed. Emperor, this feels like a trap. Leia betrays you, steals Death Star 2, and you immediately have a vision of where to find them. The Force has never lied to me. But it can be deceived. Thrawn stepped closer. Plagueis is the master of midichlorian manipulation. If he established a connection with yours on Endor, then my greatest strength has become my greatest weakness. Anakin slammed his fist on the armrest. The throne cracked. But what choice do I have? Ignore the vision and let my daughter wage war with a Death Star. Proceed with caution. Assume the vision is compromised. Plan for the unexpected. Anakin nodded slowly. Summon the fleet. Every available Star Destroyer. Every assault carrier. Luke will lead the vanguard. He stopped. Luke is aboard Death Star 2. Yes. Then I lead personally. And Thrawn, if this goes wrong, if Plagueis has truly poisoned my foresight. Anakin's voice dropped. I may not survive this. Then we ensure you do, Emperor. Because if you fall, the galaxy falls with you. War Council, Imperial Palace. Anakin stood before a holographic star chart, flanked by Grand Moffs and Fleet Admirals. The red dot marking Glavis Ringworld pulsed ominously. Leia has taken Death Star 2 to this location. Intelligence confirms Plagueis has established a base there. Anakin's voice was iron. We strike in 72 hours. 200 Star Destroyers. 3 Superstar Destroyers. Full planetary assault capability. My lord, one admiral ventured. With respect, what if this is a feint? What if the real target is Coruscant? Then Coruscant's defenses will hold. Anakin turned. But my daughter is there. My son is aboard that station. I'm bringing them home. The council dispersed. Alone with Thrawn, Anakin stared at the star chart. I'm walking into a trap, he said quietly. Yes, but I have no choice. No. If I die, you won't. Thrawn's voice carried absolute certainty. Because I will be there, and I do not lose. Anakin. Accurate. Glavis Ringworld. Plagueis' command center. Leia stood before the viewport, watching her brother's confused face on the holographic transmission. Leia, please, Luke begged. Whatever he promised you, it's a lie. Come home. Home. Her laugh was bitter. To be father's servant? His weapon? I'm done, Luke. And you should be too. This is my choice. She cut the transmission. Behind her, Plagueis emerged from the shadows. His disfigured face was illuminated by the command screens. Well done. Your father will come. His visions will show him exactly what I want him to see. He gestured at the displays. The Executor, too, leading the fleet, Anakin personally commanding. He'll walk right into my trap. And then? Leia's voice was hard. Then I kill him, Luke as well. And you inherit the Empire with me as your advisor. He studied her. Unless you're having second thoughts? At the reflection of herself in the viewport, scarred, augmented, transformed into something her mother wouldn't recognize. No second thoughts. Father chose to make me a weapon. Now he'll learn what that means. But inside, where Plagueis couldn't see, a small part of her screamed. What have I done? The Force gave no answer. Only the dark. The Imperial fleet. Hyperspace. Anakin stood on the bridge of the Executor 2, watching the blue tunnel of hyperspace rush past. In his hand, Padmé's Jaipur snippet, worn smooth from decades of handling. I'm about to fight our daughter, he whispered to the wooden pendant. And our son is caught in the middle. If you were here, what would you tell me to do? The snippet, as always, didn't answer. But in his mind, he heard her voice. The last words she'd ever spoken. There is still good in you. I hope you're right, Anakin said, because I'm about to need every bit of it. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Ahead. Glavis Ringworld, a massive band orbiting a dead star. And waiting for him, his daughter, his son, and the ancient Sith who had been manipulating them all. The final battle had begun. The Glavis Ringworld stretched across the viewport like a god's discarded bracelet. 10,000 kilometers of ancient metal and stone, orbiting a star that had died before humanity reached the stars. Anakin stood on the bridge of the Executor 2, watching his fleet deploy. 200 Star Destroyers forming attack formations, fighter squadrons streaming from launch bays, the machinery of war precise and terrible. His foresight showed him victory. Clear. Unambiguous. He didn't trust it. Grand Admiral, Anakin said quietly, deploy the fleet as planned, but hold the reserve forces in hyperspace. Something is wrong. You sense the deception. I sense certainty, and certainty is always a lie. Anakin clenched his fists. Launch the assault, but be ready to retreat. The fleet moved forward. Inside the Ringworld's command center, Plagueis watched the Imperial forces approach. Around him, Force priestesses, ancient beings he'd corrupted from the wellspring of life, chanted in languages that predated recorded history. The barrier is ready, he asked. Yes, Master, one of the priestesses hissed. When Skywalker enters the command center, the separation will activate. The son trapped inside. The father locked out. Leia stood beside him, watching the fleet deployment on tactical screens. Her cybernetic hand trembled slightly. He's coming himself, leading the assault personally. Of course he is. I showed him a vision where he wins, where he saves both his children. Plagueis' wheezing laugh filled the room. Arrogance is hereditary, it seems. And if he doesn't fall for it, he will. Because despite everything, he still loves you. And love makes even emperors into fools. The assault force landed on the ring's surface. 5,000 elite troops. Anakin, flanked by his personal guard, advanced through ancient corridors carved with symbols no one living could read. Luke's presence burned in the force ahead. Bright, confused, trapped. He's in the command center, Anakin said, 300 meters north. I can feel him. They moved faster. The corridors narrowed, then opened into a vast chamber. The command center entrance stood before them, massive doors pulsing with organic energy that made Anakin's skin crawl. The doors opened. Anakin saw Luke inside, surrounded by Sith warriors and strange-robed figures. His son's eyes were wide, desperate. "Father, it's a trap, don't." Anakin stepped through the threshold. An invisible force slammed into him from behind, shoving him backward. He stumbled, catching himself, but he was on the wrong side of the entrance. A shimmering barrier erupted across the doorway, transparent but impenetrable. Anakin was outside. Luke and the strike team were inside. No! Anakin threw himself at the barrier. Force lightning, telekinetic blasts, raw kinetic fury. The barrier held, rippling but unbroken. Through it, he could see everything, like watching through glass. Plagueis emerged from the shadows inside the command center. "Welcome, Skywalker. Your children await." Luke ignited both lightsabers, green and blue blades humming. Around him, 30 clone commandos raised their weapons. Leia stepped out from behind a control console. Her red lightsaber ignited. "Leia?" Luke's voice cracked. "Don't do this. I have to." Her eyes were haunted. "He made us into weapons, Luke. Tools to serve his empire. Don't you see? We're slaves just like he was on Tatooine." "That's Plagueis talking. This is me talking." Her voice rose. "Father sent you to kill me if necessary. Did he tell you that? Did he give you that order?" Luke's hesitation was answer enough. "He did," Leia whispered. "He told you to kill me. Only if you couldn't be saved. There it is. The truth." She raised her saber. "You've already made your choice, brother. Now I make mine." She attacked. Outside the barrier, Anakin pounded on the invisible wall, screaming, "Leia, stop. Luke, get out of there." They couldn't hear him. The duel was brutal. Luke's Makashi precision against Leia's Juyo savagery. Green and blue against red. Brother against sister. Their blades met in showers of sparks. Luke fought defensively. He wouldn't kill her, couldn't. Leia pressed the attack, tears streaming down her face even as she tried to cut him down. "I don't want to do this," she screamed. "Then don't." Luke parried a strike meant for his throat. "Come home." "I can't." "He's in my head, Luke. Plagueis is in my midichlorians and I can't get him out." She swung wild. Luke ducked, swept her legs. She hit the ground, her saber skittering away. Luke held his blade to her throat. "It's over. Come home." For a moment, Leia looked at him. Really looked. The brother she'd trained with, fought beside. The only person in the galaxy who understood what it meant to be Anakin Skywalker's child. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Then her hand shot out, force pulling her fallen saber back to her grip. She drove it upward, through Luke's chest. The blade erupted from his back, plasma burning through his heart, his lungs, everything vital. He gasped, blood frothing at his lips. His lightsabers dropped from nerveless fingers. He collapsed. Outside the barrier, Anakin felt it. Luke's presence in the Force. That bright, burning star. Extinguished. His son was dead. Anakin screamed. The sound was inhuman. Primal. Every being on the ring world felt it. A wave of Force energy fueled by absolute anguish. The barrier cracked, but held. Inside, Leia stood over Luke's body, trembling. The lightsaber fell from her hand. What did I? Plagueis approached from behind. "You fulfilled your purpose." She spun. "You said I'd rule. You will." After one final task. His hand raised. Leia felt it immediately, her own midichlorians turning against her, flooding her bloodstream with commands that stopped her heart. She clutched her chest, gasping. "Father, I'm sorry." She collapsed beside Luke. Two bodies. Two children. Dead. Plagueis stepped over them without a second glance. He approached the barrier, where Anakin stood frozen in shock. "Your children are dead, Skywalker." and it was your arrogance that killed them. You trusted your foresight, but I made you see what I wanted you to see. Anakin's eyes locked onto Plagueis. No gold, no blue, just rage distilled into 2 points of absolute hatred. I'm going to kill you. Try. Anakin reached into the Force, not the dark side alone, not the light, the raw Force, the energy that existed before Jedi and Sith, before philosophy and dogma. White gold lightning erupted from his hands, not dark side corruption, not light side serenity. Pure cosmic energy. It struck the barrier. The Force priestesses screamed as their essences unraveled. The barrier cracked, spiderwebs spread across its surface. Anakin pushed harder. The Force responded, reality itself bent around his will. The barrier shattered. He strode through, glass-like fragments of Force energy dissolving around him. His robes billowed. His presence in the Force was so intense that Sith warriors staggered back. Plagueis retreated. Impressive, but too late. Shut up. Anakin didn't use his lightsaber. He used the Force itself. He grabbed Plagueis telekinetically and slammed him into the wall. Durasteel buckled. Plagueis gasped. Before he could recover, Anakin was there. His hands closed around Plagueis' throat. Not force choke. Physical strangulation. You manipulated my daughter. Poisoned my foresight. Killed my son. Plagueis tried to use Force lightning. Anakin absorbed it, his body glowing. I studied midichlorians for a century. Plagueis wheezed, and I mastered the Force itself. Anakin's eyes blazed white. You're not leaving this room alive. Plagueis tried to phase away, to escape through the technique he'd used before. Anakin held him in place, raw telekinetic force pinning him to the physical plane. Then Anakin did what no one else could. He reached into Plagueis' body, not with the Force, but through it. He found the Munes midichlorians, the billions of microscopic organisms that connected him to the Force, and he commanded them, not to sustain, to scatter. Plagueis' eyes widened in horror as he felt it, his own midichlorians abandoning him, returning to the cosmic Force. His connection severing, his power draining. No, this is impossible. You can't. I'm the chosen one. I can do anything. Plagueis' body began to disintegrate, not burned, not aged, simply unmade. His midichlorians scattered like dust in wind, taking his physical form with them. His scream echoed briefly. Then silence. Darth Plagueis, master of life and death, was erased from existence. Anakin stood alone in the command center. Around him, corpses, Sith warriors he'd killed without noticing. Force priestesses dissolved into nothingness, and in the center, Luke and Leia, his children, dead. He knelt between them, took Luke's hand in his left, Leia's in his right. I'm sorry, he whispered. I did this. I made you weapons. I failed you. Their bodies were still warm. Death had taken them minutes ago. Not hours. Minutes. Anakin closed his eyes. He remembered Plagueis' teachings, the holocrons he'd studied, the technique that the ancient Sith had boasted about. Essence transfer, but not to take life, to give it. I won't lose you again. He placed his hands over their chests, reached into the Force with everything he had. His midichlorians, the ones that had sustained him for 86 years, kept him young, made him powerful, began to migrate, flowing from his cells into theirs, life force transferring. Anakin felt it immediately. The cost. His hair turned white, skin wrinkled, muscles atrophied. The Force drain reversed. Now he was the one being drained. Luke's chest wound began to close, flesh knitting, organs regenerating. Leia's heart restarted. Blood flowing again. Color returned to their faces. Anakin collapsed forward, his strength gone. Luke gasped, his eyes flying open. Father, no. It's all right. Anakin's voice was barely a whisper. Ancient now. Truly ancient. I should have done this. Years ago. Leia stirred, consciousness returning. She saw her father, white-haired, withered, dying. Father, what did you? Saved you. Both of you. He looked at Luke, then Leia. Lead them. Not with fear, with hope. To Leia, forgive me. I made you a weapon. when you should have been a daughter. To both, your mother would be proud. I see her in your eyes. His breathing slowed. Ani? Leia's voice broke. She hadn't called him that since childhood. I'm tired. Anakin Skywalker, Emperor of the Galaxy, closed his eyes. His presence in the Force faded. He was gone. Luke and Leia held his body, weeping. The most powerful man in the galaxy had died to save them. Outside, Thrawn received the reports. The barrier down. Plagueis dead. The Emperor. He knelt. The Emperor is dead, he said quietly. Long live the Empire. Somewhere else. Somewhere beyond. Anakin opened his eyes. He stood on a plane of crystalline light. Above, 3 suns. Below, endless stars, and before him, the Father, the embodiment of the Force's balance. Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one. You have arrived. I'm dead? Your mortal form, yes, but not your essence. The Father stepped closer. I have watched you, through your fall, your reign, your sacrifice. You brought balance, not through victory, but through surrender. I killed billions, destroyed planets, made my children into. And you gave your life to save them. Redemption is not erasing the past. It is accepting it and choosing differently. The Father extended his hand. Mortis needs a guardian. The son and daughter are dead. I am fading. The Force itself needs balance. I offer you my place. Anakin stared at the offered hand. Will I see them again? Luke, Leia, Padmé? One day, when their time comes. But not for many years. Anakin looked down at himself. No longer aged, no longer scarred. Whole. I spent my life trying to control the Force. Maybe it's time I learned to serve it. He took the Father's hand. Light erupted, blinding, pure. When it faded, Anakin stood transformed. Robed in silver and gold, his eyes neither blue nor gold, but white, the color of stars. The Father smiled. I can rest now. Watch over them, Anakin. And forgive yourself. The Father dissolved into the Force. Anakin stood alone on Mortis, looking down at the galaxy. He reached out, felt Luke, Leia, every living being. I will protect you, all of you, not as a tyrant. He closed his eyes. As a guardian. 10 years later, Coruscant, the Imperial Palace throne room had changed. Where once a single throne of black obsidian dominated the space, now stood 2, equal in size, equal in prominence. Between them, a holographic star chart rotated slowly, marking every system in the galaxy with precise notation. Co-emperors Luke and Leia Skywalker ruled together. Luke stood before the viewport wearing robes of gray, neither Jedi white nor Sith black. His face bore scars from a decade of leadership, lines etched by difficult decisions and harder compromises, but his eyes remained clear. Leia approached from the council chamber, datapad in hand. Her cybernetic arm had been upgraded, sleeker now, interfaced with Imperial systems. She wore her own gray robes, mirroring her brother. The Alderaanian delegation wants assurances about Force user registration, she said. They're concerned about overreach. Then we give them oversight. Independent councils in each sector. Luke turned from the window. No more secret police. No more Imperial hands disappearing dissidents. Father would never have. Father ruled through fear. We rule through consent. That's the difference. He softened. That's what he wanted for us. At the end, Leia nodded slowly. A decade had dulled the guilt, but it never truly left. She'd killed her own brother, even if he'd been resurrected. That stain didn't wash away. Thrawn reports the Outer Rim reconstruction is ahead of schedule, she said, changing the subject. Trade routes are reopening. The Vong-damaged sectors are recovering. And Talon? But her raids have stopped. Leia pulled up a holographic image, Darth Talon, older now, teaching younglings in what looked like a temple. Our intelligence suggests she's teaching balance, light and dark both. Luke smiled faintly. Perhaps Father's legacy wasn't all tyranny. A chime at the door. Enter. Grand Admiral Thrawn walked in, his blue skin touched with age but his tactical brilliance undiminished. He bowed precisely. Co-Emperors, the monument is complete. The dedication ceremony begins in 1 hour. We'll be there. Luke glanced at his sister. Ready? No, but we're going anyway. The Monument of Balance stood on Coruscant's highest tower. It was carved from a single piece of kyber crystal. Clear, neither light nor dark. The statue depicted Anakin Skywalker not as the Emperor in black robes, but as the Chosen One. Arms raised, eyes closed, the Force flowing through him. At the base, an inscription in High Galactic: he fell, he rose, he sacrificed, he brought balance. Thousands gathered for the ceremony. Former Imperial officers, redeemed Sith, surviving Jedi, citizens from across the galaxy. Luke stepped to the podium. The crowd quieted. My father was many things, he began. Slave, Jedi, general, emperor, tyrant, and in the end, savior. He spent 40 years ruling through fear, building an empire on blood and broken principles. He destroyed planets. He shattered lives. He turned his own children into weapons. Leia stood beside him, adding, but he also protected the galaxy from the Yuuzhan Vong. He forged alliances with the Kiss. He fought Abeloth when she awakened. And when he saw what his choices had cost, he chose differently. He gave his life to save us, not because the Empire needed him, because his children did. That single act of love redeemed a lifetime of darkness. He gestured to the statue. This monument isn't a celebration of Emperor Skywalker. It's a reminder. Power without wisdom is tyranny. Strength without compassion is cruelty. And balance, true balance, requires sacrifice. The crowd was silent. Then, slowly, they began to applaud. Not for the Emperor, for the man who had been the chosen one. Later that night, Luke's private chambers. Luke sat alone, meditating. The Force flowed through him, not dark, not light, but balanced, gray. He felt his father's presence, not alive, not a ghost, something else. A warmth in the Force, distant but present. You're doing well, son. Luke's eyes opened. Father? The presence didn't answer with words, just impressions, approval, pride. And beneath it, peace. Luke smiled. I hope so. We're trying. Leia and I, building something better than what you left us. The warmth intensified, then faded. Luke sat in silence, feeling the absence and the presence simultaneously. Thank you, he whispered to the empty air. For everything, even the hard parts. Leia's private laboratory. She stood before a holographic projection of midi-chlorians, studying their structure. Not for weapons, not for manipulation. For healing. If I can understand how Father transferred his life force, she muttered, adjusting variables, I can replicate it. Medical applications. Extending lives without the dark side corruption. A hand touched her shoulder. She jumped, spinning. Luke stood there, smiling gently. You're working too late again. There's so much to fix. So much Father broke. And we're fixing it. Together. But Leia, he took her real hand in his. You don't have to carry his guilt. What happened on Glavis Ringworld? Plagueis manipulated you. Father knew that. That's why he saved you. And he brought me back. And you've spent 10 years trying to atone. At some point, you have to forgive yourself. Leia's eyes shimmered. I don't know how, but we figure it out together. He squeezed her hand. That's what siblings do. She leaned against him, and for a moment, they were just two people trying to heal from a childhood spent as weapons. The Jedi Temple. Coruscant. Rebuilt. Not as it was before Order 66, but something new. The council chamber held a dozen seats, but now Sith and Jedi sat together, former enemies learning from each other. Light and dark in deliberate balance. At the head, Darth Talon. She'd come to Coruscant 6 months ago, offering a truce. Not surrender, partnership. The younglings are progressing, she reported to Luke and Leia. We're teaching them both traditions, Jedi serenity and Sith passion. Control and power. They're becoming something neither of us were. Balanced, Luke said. Whole, Leia corrected. Talon inclined her head. Your father would be complicated about this. Proud and horrified simultaneously. Luke laughed. That sounds like him. He asked me once to help build this. Talon said quietly. Before the end, before Glavis, he wanted the Sith and Jedi unified. I thought he was mad. He was. Leia said, but he was also right. Mortis. The realm beyond realms. Anakin Skywalker sat cross-legged on the crystalline plane, meditating. Around him, the Force flowed in perfect harmony, light and dark swirling together like two dancers performing an eternal ballet. He reached out, feeling the galaxy. Luke on Coruscant, making a difficult decision with wisdom beyond his years. Leia in her laboratory, healing wounds both physical and emotional. Thrawn advising them both, his tactical genius ensuring the Empire's stability. Talon teaching younglings, bridging the ancient divide. The galaxy was healing. Not perfect, never perfect, but better. A presence materialized beside him, warm, familiar. Padmé, not alive, not dead. A Force presence, preserved through love. Annie, she said, her voice like music he'd forgotten he knew. Padmé, he couldn't look at her, couldn't bear it. I failed you. I became everything you feared. And then you chose differently. At the very end, you chose love over power. You saved our children. After spending 40 years destroying them. After spending your whole life trying to save everyone. She sat beside him, her presence radiating forgiveness. You were broken, Ani. The Jedi broke you. Palpatine broke you. Loss broke you. But in the end, you put the pieces back together. I killed billions, and you spent eternity trying to protect them. Balance isn't about being perfect. It's about choosing again and again to be better. She placed a hand over his heart, or where his heart would be, if he still had a physical form. I'm proud of you. Anakin finally looked at her. She was exactly as he remembered. Beautiful. Strong. Everything he'd loved. I don't deserve forgiveness. None of us do. That's what makes it grace. She smiled. Our children are amazing, Ani. They're everything we hoped they'd be. Stronger for being broken, wiser for knowing pain. I wish you could tell them. I do, every day, through the Force. They feel it, even if they don't recognize it. She stood. But they need their father more than their mother now. Guide them. Protect them. Be the guardian the Force chose you to become. She began to fade. Will I see you again? Anakin asked. Always. I'm in the Force, and the Force is everywhere. We're never truly apart. Her voice grew distant. I love you, Ani. I always did. I always will. I love you too. She vanished. Anakin sat alone again. But he didn't feel alone. He felt complete. Coruscant. The monument. Midnight, Luke and Leia stood before their father's statue, looking up at the crystalline figure. Do you think he's at peace? Leia asked. I think he's exactly where he needs to be. Luke smiled. Watching over us, protecting the galaxy, being the guardian he always should have been. Above them, in the night sky, a single star seemed to burn brighter than the rest. Just for a moment. Then it dimmed to normal. But both twins felt it. A warmth in the Force. A presence that was neither light nor dark. Just their father, watching, protecting, at peace. Thank you, Leia whispered to the sky. The wind carried her words away. And somewhere beyond the stars, Anakin Skywalker smiled. Mortis. Final scene. Anakin stood at the edge of the crystalline plane, looking down at the galaxy. Every star, every life, every possibility. The Force flowed through him, not as a tool, not as a weapon, but as breath, as heartbeat, as existence itself. I spent my life fighting, he said to the cosmos, fighting the Jedi, fighting myself. I thought power meant control. I thought control meant safety. I thought safety meant never losing anyone again. He closed his eyes. I was wrong. Love means risk. Power means responsibility. And safety is an illusion. The crystalline plane reflected his image, no longer scarred, no longer aged, but whole. But I'm done fighting. Now I just watch. I guide. I balance. A voice, his own but younger, uncorrupted, echoed from memory. I'm going to be a Jedi, the greatest Jedi ever. I'm going to save everyone. Anakin smiled sadly at the memory of that boy on Tatooine. So young, so certain. I couldn't save everyone, he said to his younger self. But I saved the ones who mattered most, and they're saving the galaxy I nearly destroyed. He opened his eyes, white, like starlight. That's enough. It has to be enough. Around him, the Force sang, light and dark in eternal balance, and for the first time in his life, in his death, Anakin Skywalker felt no fear, no anger, no pain. Just peace. He sat down, folding his legs beneath him, hands resting gently on his knees. "I'm home," he whispered. The Force embraced him, and the chosen one who had fallen so far and risen so high finally rested. "Let us know what you'd like to see next." The end.